All right. So, Om Ganana Tva Ganapatikam Avamahe Kavim Kavina Umashravastamam Jeshtarajam Brahmanam Brahmanaspata Anashrinvan Nodivasi Sadhanam Shri Mahaganapataye Namaha Prano Devi Saraswati Vaje Virvajini Dhinam Vitryevato Maha Saraswati Namaha Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Devo Maheshwara Guru Sakshat Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Guruve Sarvalokanam Vishije Bhavaroginam Nidaye Sarva Vidyanam Shri Dakshinamurtaye Namaha गुरुचरणारविन्दाभ्यां नमः देवीं वाचमजनयन्त देवाः तां विश्वरूपा पशवो वदन्ति सा नो मन्द्रेषु मूर्जन्दुहाना धेनुर्वागस्मान् प्रतिष्ठितयो व्यासं वसिष्ठनप्तारं शक्ते पौत्रमकल्मषं पराशरात्मजं वन्दे शुकदातं तपोनिधिं व्यासाय विष्णुरूपाय व्यासरूपाय विष्णवे नमो वै ब्रह्मनिधये वासिष्ठाय नमो नमः श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः शिवशक्तिसमारम्भां भास्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मत्श्रीनाथपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् श्रीललिता महात्रिपुरसुन्दरी समेत श्रीचन्द्रमौळीश्वराय नमः श्रीकाञ्चीकामकोटिपीठाधिपति जगद्गुरु श्रीशङ्कराचार्य श्रीचरणयोः प्रणामाः स्वस्ति श्रीमदखिलभूमण्डलालङ्कारत्रयत्रिंशत्कोटिदेवता सेवित श्रीकामाक्षी देवी सनाथ श्रीमदेकाम्रनाथ श्रीमहादेवी सनाथ श्रीहस्तिगिरिनाथ साक्षात्कार परमाधिष्ठान सत्यव्रत नामाङ्कित काञ्ची दिव्यक्षेत्रे शारदा मठसंस्थितानाम् अतुलित सुधार समाधुर्य कमलासन कामिनी धम्मिल्ल संफुल्ल मल्लिका मालिका निष्यन्द मकरन्द झरी सौवस्तिक वाङ् निगुम्भ विजृम्भणानन्द तुन्द्रित मनीष मण्डलानाम् अनवरताद्वैत विद्या विनोद रसिकानां निरन्तरालङ्कृतीकृत शान्तिदान्ति भूम्नां सकल भुवन चक्र प्रतिष्ठापक श्रीचक्र प्रतिष्ठा विख्यात यशोलङ्कृतानां निखिल पाषण्डषण्ड कण्टकोद्घाटनेन विशदीकृत वेदान्त मार्ग षण्मत प्रतिष्ठापकाचार्याणां श्रीमत् परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्यवर्य श्री जगद्गुरु श्रीमत् शंकर भगवत पादाचार्याणाम् अधिष्ठाने सिंहासनाभिषिक्त श्रीमत् चंद्रशेखरेन्द्र सरस्वती संयमीन्द्राणाम् अधिष्ठाने सिंहासनाभिषिक्त श्रीमत् जयेन्द्र सरस्वती संयमीन्द्राणाम् अन्ते वासिवर्य श्रीमत् शंकर विजयेन्द्र सरस्वती श्रीपादानां च चरणधननयोः सप्रश्रयं सान्दिनिबन्धं च नमस्कुर्मः. Yeah, so let's continue with what you were saying. When you say one line explanation, what do you mean by that? You're on mute. All of you can unmute yourself because only three of you are there. I don't think it's going to create a problem.
No, when I hear your lectures, there is a sentence and then I have an immediate explanation about it. It will become more simpler.
Right. So give an example. Because we are taking one mantra at a time, which is hardly 2 lines.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe direct meaning of that.
Direct meaning means?
Explanation.
Direct meaning means?
Like last time we have done about the student taking the Samhita and searching for the Guru.
Correct.
Yeah, which is going on. Yeah. Maybe I'm expecting more.
No, speak up. I mean, it will only help me to change the way I explain things. That's absolutely helpful.
Not necessarily. Maybe just I felt that if I have a very concrete meaning of exactly what it is, along with it, so it's easier for me to understand that particular paragraph or shlokam. Now, what do we call these things?
Mantram.
Mantram.
Yeah.
Oh, mantram.
Each is a mantra. Okay, so let's do one thing. I will just try to take the last one in this particular Mundaka. We will finish that. And before you join, what I told Soralji and Radha is, before the next class, I will release the audio of all the mantras so far. Number one. Number two, I'm going to write up sort of a Word or PDF document that will compile all of the stuff that I have spoken so far. And it will be very in-depth and technical. I will try to see if I can put certain things in a graphical or hierarchy format so that you can visualize it better instead of just volumes and volumes of text being read. But one of the things that, as I said in the beginning, we don't even know how many things exist out there in the cosmos. That's number one. Let's start from there. Right? We don't know. Even your modern day science cannot tell you. So a modern day science which is based on perception and experience, like visual, and which uses your basic senses. Your science relies on all of these things today, modern day science. The science that we are talking of here is relies beyond the senses. Okay, and if you're reverse engineering and you're going back to what started this whole cosmos, what is the rule by which that cosmos exists? How big is it? What are all the things involved? What started and where it progressed or evolution happened to a point where you and I are sitting on YouTube and chatting these things. It is very, very highly complex. So just to take your own body, if you go back to your science class at school, it had to be divided into physics, chemistry, biology. You needed to understand the physics part of it, the chemistry part of it, because there's a lot of chemical reactions that happens in your body, and there's a lot of biology part of it. Correct? So if let us you take cell in the scientific parlance, cell, you just can't describe that as a biological aspect of it without understanding the physics part of it, which is essential as osmosis. If there is energy transfer between the external media through the inner cell, what happens, how that osmosis functions, you need to understand physics. Now, if you understand physics, osmosis in its abstract form by itself, you'll say, I don't know what you're talking about. Okay, maybe I understand it. But then you'll have to learn this separately, and understand the connection between the two. Correct? Take the example of just blood circulation. Blood circulates and goes through the lungs into the capillaries in the lungs. Correct? At some point, you're told that the oxygen that you breathe in is absorbed and the carbon dioxide is exchanged out. How will you understand this concept? So you'll have to first understand the anatomy of the lungs, what it is made up of, matter, material, characteristics of the material, and this whole process of blood flows. You are just accepting it because the modern science says blood flows, because you can see it, you say, yeah, blood flows. Why should a blood flow? When the whole world is talking of gravity, what is making the blood flow up all the way to the brain? You never questioned it. You just took it for granted. So, point here for you to understand is you need to park those terminologies and the meanings, contextual meanings that are given in a respective spot until you start going through the canvas, because it's a very large canvas. So you go through piece by piece into every aspect of it, and then you say, okay, now I get the point from here. I can see the connection between this and this and this, right? And that is one of the reason why I took sound as a simple topic. In modern day science, it is given in one line as you described it, because that is what we want to understand. In reality, that one line is taking it for granted all the stuff that is happening from within. And just to cover the Parapashyati Madhyama Vaikhari part, it took us 2.5 lectures or 3 lectures, and I'm still not done with that. Right? Just one concept of sound within us. Now imagine that you have to go before para, like why is it being connected, which also explained to the teen lokas, the conscious states, etc., etc. It is a very highly complex subject for it to be made unidimensional in one line. So, and I'm not dismissing the difficulty that you're saying that it's difficult to comprehend, but it requires repeated reading, and you just keep reading it. You may not understand every aspect of it, or you keep hearing it. At some point, it will break open because you're pushing so much of information and knowledge in. At some point, it will break open. All of the stuff that you've been hearing will suddenly make sense. But if in a sense you're trying to ask me one line, what is it that is being talked about in a very simple, Hindi mein bolo kind of a language, simple. Your knowledge is divided into lower knowledge and higher level knowledge. Lower level knowledge deals with all the basics of sound, akshara, which forms the foundation of evolution. Basics are focused on getting knowledge about the scientific aspect of everything around you, procedures, rituals, and how to use the concept of sound using akshara to chant certain things, to follow certain rules in doing havana, archana, parayana, japa, etc., etc. And all of that, if I have to put it in a very crude form, it is like sanitizing. That's it. These are actions or karmas. By just doing karmas, you are not going to get the knowledge of the eternal Atman. You will not be able to connect. It is a path, passage. It's a foundation required for launching yourself. This is number one. So sound is important in your life, and sound gets delivered through akshara when it comes into the madhyama stage. Until then, it is intellectual. Correct? So from the madhyama, it becomes more towards an object, where with the help of a, ka, cha, pa, etc., that akshara, we deliver that sound. Correct? So you're learning all these rules, procedures, etc., and you follow a very disciplined life as a basic foundation. But doing it by yourself, or doing it without a proper guide or a person who can explain things that are much more advanced, you're not going to be able to go to the path of realization, which means your knowledge is incomplete. You will be very contented and satisfied by saying, oh, now I can do puja, I can do homa, I am now master of all four Vedas, so I know everything. No, it only, you're still dealing with the stuff that is created by people. It's all the created, the object level. Correct? Uncreated means that something that we didn't create. When you talk of this object here, or the laptop, or the cup, or anything, these are all created by us. So in the process of creation, I'm now creating sound, I'm creating a lot of information. So I cannot be contented by saying I created this. Take the example of a baby. You'll hear several mothers saying, I produce this child. It's the biggest misconception. You don't produce anything. You were like an oven, baking oven. You bake something that was part of Paramatma as a Jivatma. You just baked it and delivered it. So imagine if the FedEx and UPS guys start claiming in everything that you order, saying that I delivered it to you. No. The order was placed by somebody, it was manufactured by somebody. The FedEx and the UPS guy is only delivering it on your doorstep. So it is the human nature where, because of lack of knowledge, we tend to overestimate ourselves, or we think that this is happiness. Now I see everything, I've seen everything, I've gone to Kashi, I've gone to Kailash, I've seen everything. No, you have not even seen anything. And that is the essence of the last mantra that we discussed, where they say, don't get contented with what you have learned through the Vedas, etc., as that you have understood everything. You need to go with the summit to a preceptor. A preceptor means a teacher. And a teacher who has learned Veda, who has learned Sri Vidya Upasana, who probably has gone through a certain level of higher level of knowledge, not just learning and teaching, but also experiencing. Correct? So, another simple example I can give you. A food is prepared by somebody. Until that person tastes better food, for that person it will be the best quality of food. Correct? Take undiyo for example. If I make undiyo, I will think that I am the best undiyo maker. Correct? Until I really get come across a connoisseur of food, of Gujarati food, who knows what undiyo is, the background, the essence, and what are the components, how it should taste. And the taste cannot be brought by saying, okay, I found the recipe on the internet, I just mixed all the components, a half teaspoon. My older daughter used to say for a long time, gosh, how do you guys teach cooking like this? Because my wife me and will always say orupidi in Tamil, like take a pinch and do it. She'll say, what is that one pinch? Tell me 1 gram, half gram. how many ounces. You can't do cooking with that. Correct? So you need to understand the chemistry. If I put this will get me this flavor. If I put this will happen. When to put the salt, right? If it is a tomato-based curry, what to do? Will it water? Because there are many people who don't even know. There are vegetables and other things that contains water. So if you heat them and try to cook them, it releases water. Without that knowledge, you go and pour more water into the cooking, you'll end up in creating something else than what you decide to be. So, long story short, what I'm saying is, understand sound is key. We all have evolved through the pranava, om sound, through various bijaksharas that I talked about, right? Each of the bijaksharas were the passage of evolution, where finally it came into the five senses or panchabhutangal, and from panchabhutangal we got evolved as humans. And hence we are connecting with all of those conscious states, the physical worlds, the lokas, in the same format of the formation of sound, right? That is where it gets a little abstract. So lower level knowledge will get you the foundation ready. Then you need a summit or go to a preceptor or a teacher who has got that experience. The teacher will teach you a lot of stuff. That lot of stuff is all about understanding your mind and consciousness and how to gain control of it. Take a simple example from today till next class. You make a sankalpa. Analyze what is the most nearest and dearest to you. And you take a sankalpa. Say that by next class, I'm going to give it up. Just take a sankalpa. I'm going to give up that desire or that love and affection for that particular thing. It could be a phone, it could be a watch, it could be a jewelry, it could be eating, ice cream, whatever it could be. Just pick one and say, I'm going to give it up, and see how tough it is. It is not something that you can decide and it just goes away. Because for it to go away permanently, you need to understand what is mind and how it behaves. The mind is something like a monkey. You don't know which way it will jump, what it will do when. So all of these techniques that you do is building that energy within your body, doing mantra japa and everything, is to get connection with that mind. Understand yourself, your mind first. I can give another example. All I have to use is one word that you have been told by your grandparents is a bad word, and maybe Sonalji or others grandparents have said it is a good word. Two different sources of knowledge. I don't even pay attention to it. I use the trigger word. The way you will receive it is going to be completely different than the way Sonalji and Radhaji will receive it. Correct? And that is because of the mind, how your mind is conditioned. You get what I'm saying? So if you do all of these things, what they say is you will go through the passage of suns, which is what even the Shat Chakra philosophy says. When you come into the Vishuddha Chakra, you will see lights equal to 1,000 suns. So, in short, the guru or the preceptor will guide you in moving beyond the lower level knowledge through the passage of sun and impressing upon you the essence of vairagya. Vairagya means austerity, conditioning. Conditioning is an essential component before you pass through to gaining higher level knowledge. So 2-3 things are there. Vairagya means literally you move away from all of these things. Go to a village, go to a forest, live in a forest. And if you think these things are joke in 2023, no, there are many people who do that. They go to the forest, they meditate, and they prefer the life out there than the life of luxury and glamour that we see outside, because they are serious about their path to realization. If you are attracted to these desires, you are unable to come out of it, it means you are far away from realization. You're going to go through the cycle of birth and death over and over again because you are caught in this web. How can one say, how can one live without watching TV? How can one not see WhatsApp? How can one not see phones? You will be still caught into that web. For you to be able to say what is beyond that, you need to be able to start making those trials and learnings yourself, right? And I'll give you a clue, and then I'll get into the straight away the mantra. Go back to anything in your life that is permanent. Anything. Your looks, your hair, your nails, that you spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars, right? Your vision, your skin, your friends, your neighbors, your home, the chair that you sit, the bed that you sleep. So that should make you realize all of this are decaying stuff. The only thing that is non-decaying is that Atman, which is also the Purusha that we say, because that is not created by us. So that you cannot see because it is Nirguna. There are no attributes. It's of a yellow color, 6 feet tall, 200 pounds weight. You can't describe with those attributes or characteristics. So you can only experience it. To experience that, you need that connect with, understand your consciousness, understand your mind. So that's a real summary of the whole story so far. Make sense? But you need to get into the details. If I just keep using the word sound, you are going to understand sound from your modern day scientific learning that you have had in school. Through that lens, you will not be able to understand this. So you are getting down to the breakdown of the 4 stages as described in our scriptures. An unfortunate part of it is you cannot have one chapter called sound in our scriptures that describes everything. It is given in various Upanishads. I have only picked up about 6 or 7 references. There are probably 20 different references just on sound. There will be one shloka there will be 5 shlokas somewhere else, there will be another 4 shlokas somewhere else. What they're trying to do is they're trying to reiterate a basic concept from different angle so that you get a 360 view. So I know it is tough and difficult, but when I prepare a document, you can give feedback whether it is helpful or not. It'll try to make a 3-dimensional topic linear 2-dimensional in a Word document through diagrams and stuff like that. But the summary that I gave just now, does it help? At least in saying what the essence is. Make sense? Okay. So let's go to the next mantra. It is Tasmai sa vidvan upasannaya. Tasmai sa vidvan upasannaya. Samyak prashanta chittaya. Samyak prashanta chittaya. Shamanvitaya. Yenaksharam purusham Veda Satyam Provacha Tam Tatvato Brahma Vidyam. Yenaksharam Purusham Veda Satyam Provacha Tam Tatvato Brahma Vidyam. So the shorter meaning of this in summary as what you asked is Saha Vidwan, is that learned guru. Saha Vidwan is reference to the learned guru. Upasannaya, who has approached him. Upasannaya. Samyak, properly. Prashanta Chittaya, whose mind has been well pacified, which means the reference is to the teacher or the preceptor. whose mind is well pacified, whose heart is subdued, and who is free from the basic faults like pride. Is that clear, that part? Shamanvitaya is now referring to the senses. Who has controlled his senses, or who has control over his senses. So, Padmaja, are you able to understand that when we talk of control desires, it's all like understand the mechanism of desire. Instead of saying, yeah, I have desire, I want an iPhone, instead of just remaining at that level, break it down. What causes the desire? What is driving the desire? Because unless you understand the process, you will not know where to target what. Correct? So, understand senses is part of it. So, you gain control over your senses. And you can't say this is all too high level for me. Then in that case, if you ask your husband to do a panchakacham and you do madisar, you're just doing it for the sake of fashion, right? Our very fact that we are enforcing that kind of an attire is because you control your indriyas and you focus and you understand what is required to be done even in a simple puja, and you do it everything right. The procedure, the timing, the akshara shuddhi, matra shuddhi of mantra japa, etc. Everything has to fall in place the way it is expected for the final result to show up. So if I am teaching and my mind is there right on the door, oh, is somebody going to come at the door? Somebody is there knocking at the door. If half of my mind is there, I'm not going to be able to do a good job here. So if I am teaching you Akshara Shuddhi, Matra Shuddhi, etc., and I am saying Tasmai Vidva Nupasannaya, if I start teaching this way, it is not of any use. You know what I'm saying? So that is where we start with the Dhyana Shloka.
The knowledgeable Guru.
Yeah, that is where you start with the Dhyana Shloka. You start saying that, okay, here is a class, take the class seriously. People are spending their time, investing their time, you are investing your time. This process has to succeed, means you start from there. It's a very basic elementary form, but if you have to take it to a much higher level of saying, yeah, I control my desires. Let's say that your half of your mind is here and suddenly the rest of your family is saying, Mom, we are going for a movie. Are you coming with us? Are you going to run for that, or are you going to sit and attend the class? These are very basic level of desire management. And for that, you need to go back to the template which I shared with you, right? The hierarchy of at what age and what type of phase you're going to pass through. You don't want your child to go through the spiritual aspect at a young age, or you don't want you to be behaving like a child that, no, I want to go out and play skipping now. Do you have the desire now? Even if you have, you tend to control it. You will say, no, that is not what I want to do at this age. Nothing to be ashamed of, right? It's not a question of being ashamed or shamed by the society or embarrassed by society. It's about what is your need at this age of life. What is it that you should be focused on if you're aiming for the path of liberation? Got it? So context, so desires. So Shaman Vitaya is the one who has controlled his senses. Tasmai means to him. To him. Jignyasave, seeker of truth. Yena means by which. Satyam, the true. Aksharam, imperishable. Purusham, being. Being means that Atman. Veda, can be known. And Purusha is also all pervading. Tam, that. Brahma Vidyam, knowledge. Tattvataha is in its real form. Provacha means should tell. So if you're asking in one line, I'm summarizing it in one line, this particular meaning of this mantra. Unto him who has thus properly been approached is the person who has been approached. Let's say you are the student, you have approached me. Here I am the preceptor, I am the teacher. And the teacher is not somebody who just takes upon the role of a teacher. The teacher should have that knowledge higher than what you have. The teacher should have basic knowledge of what is senses and how to control senses. So only if I know, I can teach. So the teacher should have his senses under control. The teacher should be wise enough, knowledgeable enough to impart that real form of knowledge, right? I can teach you how to operate an iPhone. I can teach you Vedams. I can teach you Suktams. I can teach you this. Then you're talking of going into the hierarchical form of knowledge in ascending order. But this teacher, if you are in pursuit of truth and Brahman, that particular teacher has to have that knowledge which you don't have. Only then I can impart that knowledge to you. So the teacher should have the real form of knowledge of Brahman by which the imperishable can be understood, which is Paramatma, the Purusha. Got it? So I've translated it in the most physical form or simplest form. Control your senses through understand sound akshara and how these tools are being used to control your senses. By using understanding of the senses, control your desires, start getting into the form of detachment. Only when you're freed from all this bondage, from this pride, oh, I did this, I delivered this baby, I gave you food, I. If you start in the true sense practicing, moving away from that, only then you will be able to see something bigger. And ultimately, just by saying, okay, now I've stopped having any desire, I'm sitting in a village in a farm and I'm not watching movies, I'm not going to this thing, I don't have a phone in my hand, etc. So now I'm liberated. No, it doesn't work like that. You'll have to get into the energy realization within your body. So both are required. Make sense? So in this case, with this mind controlled, means here the Shruti speaks of what should be the inner nature of the aspirant. Inner nature of the aspirant of the supreme knowledge. The person who is in pursuit of supreme knowledge, by knowing which all else will be known and which will free him from all limitation and bondages of life. So while I'm telling you in bits and pieces the elements that are required for you to be able to see how to get yourself free from the bondage, unless I impart that full knowledge, you will still have questions. You will still be in pursuit of truth. You will still not be able to practice it in real sense to experience that progress, right? So if, let's say, I conduct this class with a lot of drama for next 10 seconds, 15 seconds, let's say. Oh, Sonalji, you don't even know this? Padmaja, I mean, what's your age? I mean, you've grown up and you have kids and you're asking these basic questions. Let's say my teaching mode is this. Do you think I'm the right person for the right job at the right time? Yes, no? You're on mute.
No, I think that type of people also are there, but
no, I understand, but I'm giving you an analogy because maybe you're now getting used to my way of teaching or speaking, yeah. But for a moment, just park it and say, this is how I teach.
No.
It's not going to work. Is the wrong person for the wrong job. Correct? So when I tell you this is the path for you to go progress in pursuit of higher level knowledge, if I don't understand it and respect it myself, I cannot be a teacher. and you're wasting your time speaking with me or attending my class. Correct? So the preceptor has to have that senses under control. I am not a sannyasi, but I can tell you one thing. If somebody challenges me today, Kumar, you cannot live without coffee. I used to take 20 cups of coffee in a day. Believe me, it's down to one. And if tomorrow somebody says, cut it, I can cut it. I used to give excuses for a long time. No, you asked me to give up everything else, I'm willing to give up, but that coffee, morning coffee, I need it. And I had all whims and fancies. That morning coffee should be prepared by Vidya only. All, which book did I read? No, it's all like mind. Until I realized that that woman of the house needs rest. She has her own cycle of sleep. So let her manage her sleep cycle, her in her way, without putting pressure on her. I started putting coffee myself in the morning. I gave up that primary requirement in life. But then you need to be able to condition and test waters. That you think you cannot live without, test waters. Can you live without it? Only then you will know what you are capable of doing. Otherwise, if you put a net around your brain and say, oh, this is impossible, that is impossible, how can you live without money? How can, of course, there are people living without money. And for me, it's a very simple example because I come from a very, very humble background. We were more happy with my father as a single earner, living in that 100 or 200 square feet home, than what we are today. Less headaches, less problem, less stress, and we were more connected with real world. We used to meet people, go out. Here we're all like, we have to seek an appointment. Can I come to visit your home? And Sorolji can understand what I'm saying, right? Even your own daughter, are you available at home? Can we make a trip this weekend? There we used to go in Mumbai. We used to just barge into anybody's home, right? You just walk into anybody's home, just meet them, hi, hello, have coffee and go. So it's a very simple example I can give you of what you think is happiness and peace versus what actually is. And that exposure is required. Otherwise, you go and tell this to the modern kids, they'll say you're nuts. I mean, you're living in some iron age. That is how they will describe you. So this requires a person who has got that knowledge to be able to impart that knowledge. His mind must be free from all desire and attachment, must be filled with strong vairagya for the world. Vairagya means austerity, like you're just living your life without all these needs and desires. And desires and unbridled sense activities distract the mind from the path of self realization and rob away all its power of subtle comprehension of the soul. So, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, all these virtues of controlling your senses and controlling your desires through your senses, understanding the senses, gaining a reverse engineering knowledge of how the process of evolution and dissolution are all components or the stepping stones to spirituality and God realization. God realization means realization of the Brahman, Purusha. One who has not got them is not fit to be a recipient of the knowledge of the Brahman and can never understand it, nor will the imparted knowledge bear the desired fruit in him. Which means if you just keep listening to what I'm saying week after week and you don't believe in what is being said, you don't have the guts to do that, venture out and experiment with some little trial by which you can realize it yourself, all of this will sound like theory and verbal diarrhea. It will not have the desired impact on you. It will never have the desired impact of me trying to guide you to say, okay, here is the path of realization you should do. After 2 weeks, 5 months, 10 months, you will still be on the same square asking the same question which you asked 10 months ago. So whatever is the information or knowledge you're getting, that is why I keep saying it, before it becomes too abstract and you lose connection, experiment or try certain little things in the way you understand it and you know it and in your world. Don't put everything to say, oh, I am not ready to put a saffron cloth yet. I'm not ready to go to the forest yet. You don't go to the forest and start learning. You learn everything what you need to do And when you are ready, that time you go to the forest. You say, no, now I'm qualified, I'm knowledgeable, I'm ready to execute and experiment. Right? You don't start learning in the forest. So what you're doing right now is acquiring that knowledge, getting those basic level tests done to validate yourself that, yeah, I understand it. You may not be as perfect as somebody else, but you will know. And as I gave you an example, cut the coffee if you can. Just because you cut it, it doesn't mean you cannot go back and have it, right? But if you're able to live without that coffee, without which you thought you cannot live, and you're able to live, you have learned one small lesson. Right? Other example could be, and it's a very powerful message, so please focus and try to understand it. Ask yourself the question, how well have I understood relationships? We use all big terms, karma, dharma, and all this stuff is good. But you married, you had children. What is your knowledge and understanding of your relationship with your spouse and your relationship with your kids and your relationship with your previous generation? Do you own them? Do you do you take responsibility for everything they do? So let's say they do something despite your teaching, they do something exactly the opposite and come home. Are you supposed to be guilty that you are a failure?
Tolerate.
No, again, that is what you need to learn. How will you make the right choice? Unless you know, you cannot make a right choice. First knowledge is important. The fact of the matter is, in a simple term, if I have to explain, if you keep your clarity at this level that I am only a carrier, I am only a delivery person, I am only a messenger, and I do my dharma to the best of my ability. So if I'm supposed to do 100 and I do 80, I just need to be aware that I'm doing 80. Don't claim I'm 100. 80 is not bad because you're not zero. So everybody who doesn't attain 100 is not a failure. 80 is good, and it gives you scope for what more you can do to improve. Correct? And you do your dharma. Whether that child is receiving it, implementing it, practicing it, is also the child's own karma. And in this small message, you accept that you are not God. I will make my son and daughter engineer, doctor, or the prime minister and president. No, not going to happen. All of a sudden, what will happen if your child is diagnosed with something? Only then you will realize you're not God? No, you don't have to go through that path to realize that you're not God. So if you take a step back and just clear up your clouded mind and say, I'm only a guide, I'm only a messenger, I'm only a well-wisher, I can transmit good energy for my child, for my spouse, for my parents. All I have to do is to keep doing my karma, which is in the boundary of dharma, guided by dharma, and leave the outcome to God. So moment I use the term last term, it becomes a trigger for many people. So are you saying that we shouldn't do anything and leave everything to God? So if I get a heart attack, just leave it to God? No, I said do your karma within the boundaries of dharma. If your dharma says take your husband or take your spouse or take your near and dear one that is now complaining of a chest pain to the hospital, you do that. But whether in the hospital that person will survive, not survive, whether the doctor will perform the surgery, give the right medication, you don't have control over everything. You're only doing your part. So when you realize that limitation, and at the end of the day, you realize that you have to focus on your birth. And all of this, what you're doing for your parents, for your children, for your spouse, etc., is part of your balance sheet of credits and debits. Ultimately, you're focused on your birth. And you focus on what you're supposed to do. If you're supposed to take a shower, if you're supposed to sanitize your hand, you focus on doing that yourself because nobody else is going to do it for you. Correct? Would you expect somebody to come and pour sanitizer on you and take your hand and rub it? Oh, you need to get sanitized. No, you got to do it yourself. Only then you will make progress. There are certain things that you will have to acquire that knowledge, practice it, and get that experience. Somebody else cannot get the experience for you. Yeah, go ahead.
Is it true that if we learn more of, the teachings, then we tend to not want to have, or our number of relationship, we tend not to want to have too many relationships. Like
it is. I will give a straight and short answer to the question. The question is not about the number of relationships. The question is about the quality of relationship. If you have 1,000 good relationship and you are able to manage it, good. If you have 2 toxic relationships and you don't even understand that it is finishing you off, then you are being irresponsible instead of blaming somebody else. I lost my peace of mind because every time I talk to that person is yelling at me. Who says that you maintain the contact with the person? You just shut your ears. Don't keep blaming that other person. The other person will pay the price for what that other person is doing. Correct? But whether that yelling is received by you, processed by you, is so many things under your control. Correct?
But if someone in a family.
Huh? Sorry?
No, I just said if the person is in a family and we cannot avoid that person.
So you'll have to question your assumption. Number one, what is family? Why? Family is a structure. Family is not something that is defined in Shastras, right? This is family. This is what you need to do. Joint family. Those concepts are not like enjoined in Shastras. Shastras talk about you as an individual, you as a soul, you as a prana and everything, right? It's Dharma Shastra that where it says in the context of everybody else what you are bound to do, etc. But again, from your point of view, they are not describing a social structure or social strata, caste, etc. etc. It's all man-made. There's nothing there in this thing, right? So when you say family, understand first family. What is family? So do they qualify for the term? Have the courage to say that no. It doesn't mean you kick them out. Mentally, you have your control. Yeah, you think that you are family, but in my opinion, you are not fitting that definition. So I'm not going to take your word seriously. Because the very basic element, forget the spiritual definition. Family is, if I describe it in my own terminology, is a group of individuals with energy centers that are supposed to live together in a graha, which is an energy center. So your energy and the synchronization with your spouse's energy and children energy, if it is not good, if it is a Bhelpuri or if it is a missile of negative energy, conflicting energy, you're not going to have peace at home. Right? So if you look at the saying as one rotten apple can spoil the whole basket, you need to be able to insulate yourself from that impact of a rotten apple, no matter how close that person is. So an extreme example of that, let's say your own mother is the most toxic person in your life. Just because she delivered you, she was a messenger, she delivered you, she undertook the pain for 9 months to deliver you, does not give her the ultimate right to become God or devil. You can still do your dharma of saying, I am indebted to you because you brought me to this life or this world. I am indebted to do serve you, wash your feet, cook your food, clean your bed and put up your bed and do all that stuff. But do not shy away from the fact that her influence on you is toxic and you need to insulate that part. See, so when you try to develop a good, fine understanding, you will be able to still achieve your dharma without giving flimsy excuses. No, she's always yelling at me. So why should I do this for? Why are you connecting these two? You look at it from your perspective. It is your dharma to serve her. right? To clear off your debts. You are indebted to her. To clear off your debts, you have to do what you have to do. That cannot be dependent on whether she is toxic or not. That's the best example I can give you. Right? So if you develop that fine understanding into these little things, life will become much simpler. Because most of the time, a misunderstanding or not a zero understanding of the concept gives rise to all the negative energies. Where, simple example, if the child goes to the dorm, I mean, the child comes home for vacation and goes to the dorm back again, suddenly the mother or the father will think that they have to prepare all the food and special items and package it up and send everything with the child. Otherwise, they are a sinner. They are not taking care of the child. No, nowhere it is written like that. You need to sit and take a step back and say, okay, am I supposed to make the child so dependent on me? Or my job is to learn how the child to develop wings and fly, become more independent, teach more important aspects of life. These are the choices, little choices that you make that is going to get you back as happiness or peace in return or suffering. Because you brought a incorrect rule in your head that, oh, if I couldn't send that thepla with that child, I am a sinner. You are making the decision. You're being the reason for being unhappy yourself. Maybe you can explore options. Zell a couple of dollars and the child can buy thepla from the nearby Indian stores. So you don't need to be so sorry and sad. Correct? Am I making sense? No? Disagreed? Padmaja is very cautious in saying yes or no. How can you say that? My son is there in Europe and you're teaching me all wrong things.
No, I do that only. I really don't.
No, I'm saying start small and you experiment beyond that clouded jacket that we all have put as part of our learning from childhood. The reality is, when you're in pursuit of these kind of knowledge and you want to know what it is, you need to have that courage to come out of your current bonding and make those little experiments to say, oh, this, whatever is being talked and taught today makes sense. It is feasible. Only then you'll have the courage to take down that path. Otherwise, you will stand on the fence all the time. You'll be a fence sitter. These things are very scary. You're telling me to forget iPhone. You're telling me not to have coffee. You're telling me not to send thepla to my... Everything is my part of my life. And you're saying, just leave everything. How can I? That means you're saying you're a bonded labor.
What is the purpose of existence?
Huh? Sorry?
What is the purpose of existence? Not doing any of these things.
Purpose of existence. Very good question. First and the foremost is in pursuit of truth. You want to live a true life, right? You don't want to live a life where I do a mayajal on you and say, oh, okay, this is the best world that you can get. There's no ultimate luxury beyond this. Until that bubble bursts and you realize there is something way beyond that and you feel cheated. Correct? So, first and the foremost is pursuit of truth. Unless you understand and you step yourself on the pursuit of truth, you will not get true happiness. Until you realize what is true happiness and experience it, you will not appreciate it. So that is what I'm saying. Make those little experiments. I'm not asking you to make big changes. And none of this is irreversible, right? So once, if you don't send thepla with your son, it doesn't mean that you have committed a sin and you cannot send it next time. You can always go back. But have the courage to make those little experiments to see what are the boundaries that you need to push if you're really talking of learning higher level knowledge. That makes sense, right? Each one can practice and experience, right? So did I answer your question, Sonalji? Number of relationships?
It's just, I'm just thinking that is it egoistical to not feel like going with your old friends and, have a laugh and then, what's the purpose of it? It's just going and have fun. I mean, it's okay. I mean, I'm finding that a bit of a waste of time. Like, and then I'm thinking, I'm double-minded, like you say, double-edged sword, thinking, oh, I should be with them. But at the same time, I feel, oh, I'd rather be reading, learning, this knowledge. So that's where my
very simple answer. And as I alluded to it a little bit earlier in the class, that makes you feel guilty of not spending time with that friend. If it is not too personal. How old is that friendship?
No, we
5 years.
We're a group of friends.
I'm just saying, pick one. 5 years, 10 years.
Yeah, 10 years. Maybe.
So were you guilty when you didn't know that friend?
No, naturally
so
not. Yeah.
That is temporary.
Yes.
So look at a sense of duty from the lens of dharma. And it's a very, very powerful topic. Maybe one of the class I'll just focus on a little bit of dharma and hierarchy, etc. It will open up your eyes to many things.
It is your dharma to do karma, and for karma you have to mingle with other people so that then you become responsible in it. It's only when you're with other people you evolve, because if you're just sitting in your room or house and learning, then when the time of interaction comes, you may not have that practice of being in a relationship. It's only through relationships that you understand yourself.
Take anything, like take Shiva Purana. Or if you have not read Shiva Purana, forget Shiva Purana. Have you watched the serial Devoka Dev Mahadev?
Well, we started, didn't we, at Kailash. But
what is it that Lord Shiva and Lord Parvati do? Are they building more relationships and throwing a lot of parties, or at the first opportunity, he goes into meditation to rebuild his energies?
Yeah, second one.
So you will have to take a pramana to say that you have to be with friends to learn. That is not a correct assumption. You need a teacher to ensure what you're learning is correct and appropriate and valid for you. That's about it. This whole concept of party and pizza party and kiddie party and all is modern day, not in those days.
No.
Correct? So when you are learning, it is not either or. That either you will remain at home and do nothing else and only focus on yourself, or you will not do anything about yourself. You will always be outside the house doing kiddie party. It cannot be both. It has to be a fine balance of everything. So you spend time in understanding yourself, experiencing yourself, learning, and going after truth. And to the extent that you need interaction, social interaction, maintaining those relationships, level it up. Level it up means should you meet your friend once a week, once a month, once a year? That balance is required for you. You know what I'm saying? It's not either or, just completely get rid of that and get rid of this. But as you evolve, for example, when you go from Grahasthashram, in Grahasthashram is where you need lots of those social structure and security and etc. etc. Aaj aapko kuch ho gaya, suddenly your neighbors will come and help and go only if you maintain relationship. If you're a loner, nobody will care for you. That is in your Grahasthashram. When you have produced kids and you're having grandkids and all, you don't require that level of social relationships outside, because your kids and grandkids will take that care for you. They will have their own network that will probably substitute your relationship that you have of your own. So you can narrow down the pyramid. From Vriddhashram, then they say Vanaprastham is actually going to the forest, and Sannyasi. Those two phases, you really don't need anybody except your guru.
Right. Okay.
Correct? So it's not like is partying good or bad. It depends on what is the evolution of you as an individual in various phases of life. So you don't do Grahasthashram stuff when you're a kid. You don't do kiddie stuff when you're in a Grahasthashram. There is a time and context for everything that you do. Does that help?
Yes, sir.
So I'm not teaching you to say tomorrow delete all your contacts and throw all your friends out. But devote more and more time as you're aging, as you're progressing in your life through various phases. Understand which phase of life you are in and what is more appropriate for you, and do those right things at the right time. And if you have to do something in the next phase of your life, you need to have your education ahead of time. You can't say, now I am in Vanaprastham and now I'm going to say A for apple, B for boy, etc. You can't do that. And that is where the template I found was so powerful. Because in one simple chart, if you still have that image, it is good. Otherwise, I can send it. It tells you Jnana Kanda, Karma Kanda, etc.
The triangle.
Exactly. You have it or you don't have it?
I have it.
Yeah, please print it out and see that, and it will answer a lot of your questions.
Thank you.
So, Padmaja, now helping, not helping. Still, I don't know. I'll wait and.
Not like that. It's good.
And so I would like to. Huh? Sorry?
With more clarity.
Yeah, but I will say one thing. When you come up for with an answer of saying, I don't know that I can do it, that statement is nothing but fear. Fear means lack of knowledge. Because with knowledge, you will never have fear. Fear means lack of knowledge. Please take that simple mantra in your life. With knowledge, the fear will go away because you know by giving up 2 friends is good for me or bad for me. That knowledge will help you make the right decision. Otherwise, it is trial and error. Today, you will say, I'm getting so pissed off, so I'm going to cut off my relationship. Suddenly, you become lonely and you go in pursuit of rebuilding those relationships. You cannot live a life like that. Life is purely based on acquisition of knowledge. Through knowledge, experience. Use that experience to build up your knowledge further, because that experience is essential, right? If I've had somebody in my class who's got lots and lots of bad experience with many friends, they will easily gobble up my suggestion. Yeah, you're absolutely right. These friends are no good, no use. And the same advice to somebody else who lives and breathes on friendship and parties will say, this man is talking nuts. He doesn't even know the value of friendship. So ultimately, it is each to his own or her own. And you will have to translate what you get as an input and apply it and experiment and experience it before you start building up on those things. But some of the simple tips that I've given, try to experiment it. There's no need to be afraid of that. Those little experiments is worth it to open up your eyes. Not just once. You don't come back and tell me, I stopped coffee 1 day a week and it was disastrous. I was having so much of headache. Try it a few times and see if the result is slightly different. It'll be an eye opener for you. Makes sense? So Radha, are you still there? Multitasking? I think she's multitasking. So any other question or shall we wrap up? Yeah, I've not exceeded much. We are right on target, 1 hour. Super.
Yeah, I'm very much there.
So any feedback?
Nothing at present. I shall listen to it once again. Since I was traveling, I reached here and then
Okay.
I was listening to this also. Yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah. Okay.
Good.
Await your
nice
feedback.
Questions also from both Padma and Sonal. Lot of good questions.
No, I think that is what I expect in this class, because my aim is not to say, I finished Mundaka Upanishad, let us move on to something else. This is one thing which I agreed to after a lot of thought, because this is very deep. And if you get real input from this, and if it is an eye opener, you may not have even understood 30% of it or 20% of it. Still, if it is an eye opener, you will say there are many other Upanishads that are important. And the more you read some of these things or understand these things, it will bring clarity. Initially, it will be a little clouded. I agree. I've gone through that phase myself. But you need to keep talking and studying and reading and listening to this over and over again. It opens up lots of things. All right, great. Have a good day. See you next time.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Sure. Bye.
Thank you.